Good morning. Good morning. You know, in our some of our RE classes, we used to do, if you can hear me, clap once, and then, if you, then, Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist congregation. Welcome to you who are here in the sanctuary. Welcome to you who are watching online. Welcome to those of you who are out on the pavilion. Sandy Cunningham is waving. It's great to see all of you here this morning. It's great to be with you. My name is Tony Fisher. I serve this congregation as minister. And as always, I am grateful for that group of people who make this service happen. Daniel and John in the AV room, Abby and Frank this morning. I'm flying solo this morning without a worship associate. But I would like to introduce to you our guest musician, Frank Corso, who's here. And if any of you have heard Frank play, you know that we're in for a treat this morning in his participation within the service. So there's a wonderful bio of Frank on the back of the order of service, and also a wonderful testimonial from our administrator, Anna Riazzi, who is sponsoring Frank this morning. So whether you're here this morning watching online or out on the pavilion, we're glad you've joined us. We're no less grateful for those of you who can't be here this morning for whatever reason, whether they're out in the world doing something else, they are still part of this community, and we connect with them. Our our mission statement that this congregation has enjoyed and lived into the last 8 years says that we are a welcoming congregation freely seeking intellectual and spiritual growth, that we strive to create a larger community of peace, justice, and love. And I do believe we work very hard at living those values out in public in so many different ways. This morning, we have the first of 3 testimonials that will be coming to you over the course of the next month, 2 months, as we enter into the time of our annual pledge drive. And I'm grateful to invite Nancy Carroll up to the lectern this morning to share some of her ideas about what this place means to her. Can you hold this?
My name is Nancy Carroll, and I've been a member here for almost 9 years. And as part of our annual process of thinking about what we want to contribute to UUCGN, Steve Espinosa asked me to share what my love of congregation means. But before I share my thoughts, I'm wondering what got you in the door the first time you came here? And what brought you back a second time? Were you seeking something? What are you seeking now at this time in your life? And perhaps more importantly, what is it that you want to give yourself to? Like many of you, I think, I grew up in the mainstream Protestant tradition. My church and family were somewhat liberal-leaning, and so growing up I questioned, but with an inconsistent passion for finding answers. There was plenty of time to figure things out after all. My life unfolded perhaps like yours did, with marriage, children, a divorce, and remarriage, and a satisfying career. And then, as it does, life forced me to confront my beliefs. When I was in my mid-50s, my dad died, followed 1 year later by the death of my daughter. I desperately wanted something to hold on to, something to comfort me. I remembered well a Bible quote about looking through a glass darkly and needing to put away childish things. I was in a dark place, and my childhood faith didn't work anymore. I realized the promise of life after death doesn't work for my sense of reality. So for the first time, I pulled completely away from any religion. I imagine many of you can relate. At that time, my parents had retired here in Naples, and with my dad's death, my husband and I were spending more and more time here managing my mother's care. She needed me to take her to her Methodist church and Bible study every Sunday, and I did, but I found that I was almost repelled by what was going on there. So enter UUCGN. I stumbled in almost 10 years ago, drawn by an interesting forum, not a Sunday service. So it was curiosity about a secular topic that got me in the door. I didn't really know then what else I was seeking. I think that sometimes we don't know until we find it. I stayed for the Sunday service and then returned, having found curious, intelligent people who welcomed me. The minister here then offered heady, articulate, and intellectually challenging homilies. I wanted more of that. My mind was engaged, and my truth-seeking self was satisfied. I did what many of you have done or are doing. I dug deeper to understand what Unitarian Universalism is, but I stayed mostly in my head. Through that process, in spite of myself, I had an emotional and perhaps spiritual attraction to the music and the readings from all sorts of wisdom teachers. And fairly soon, this place began to feel like a community worth holding on to and participating in. My husband and I became members at a time when the congregation entered a transition with an interim minister for 2 years. My mother died shortly after that in 2013, and not wanting a Methodist funeral, I asked Reverend Plum, the interim minister, to lead her memorial service in my community clubhouse where my parents had lived. We had UU hymns and readings that resonated for me from Pema Chodron and others. No promises that we would meet again in heaven. Life continued to unfold. I underwent a profound life transition when my husband was diagnosed with a virulent cancer and died 8 months later. I became a widow in 2018. The seeking questions changed, and being very alone, the search for home and community was relentless. Who have I been all this time? How will I use the rest of my life? What do I need to hold close and what to let go of? What will give me strength as I die? How do I protect myself from feeling rudderless and at the same time open my heart? I know many of you have confronted this ultimate aloneness, and I also know that those of us in relationship are going to confront it one way or another. This community held and supported me. I was not so alone. I was part of a chosen family. A year of slow healing, and then I had the profound opening experience of attending the UUA General Assembly in Spokane, Washington in the spring of 2019. You might consider attending in 2022. My circle of identification solidified then and expanded, and I got it that I was part of a dynamic and exciting worldwide faith community. The hymn refrain I learned at that assembly, "What shall I do with these hands of mine?" still speaks to my heart. I met my new husband, Al, that summer. He has embraced UUCGN, and this summer we were married in a very UU ceremony officiated on the coast of Maine by Tony. As one of my favorite philosophers and Quaker writers, Parker Palmer, says, life constantly reminds us that we can't hang on to what we love. All of it will take its leave sooner or later, and so will we. In his older age, he now asks himself a different question, one for each of us to answer for ourselves. Not what do I want to keep, what do I want to hold, but what do I want to give myself to? Palmer says trying to hang on to what I treasure defies the law of life, and it's a needy, clingy, scarcity-based way of being in this world. But asking what I want to give myself to directs me toward places where I can find meaning, energy, and a reminder of life's abundance. He continues, for me at least, What do I want to give myself to is a question that can open a path with a heart. So what do you want to give yourself to at this time of life? And what might this year hold for you in this community? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nancy. Part of the work of this opening piece is to have people drop into the service. And you have, in fact, done that beautifully. Thank you. So we can finally welcome Frank and ask him to help us continue that process as we begin our service with this morning's prelude. come together today to honor the universal community of seekers to which we all belong. We gather together today to share from our deepest places of safety, that we might nurture ourselves by celebrating one another. We call into our presence in this hour our ancestors, whose labor of love and commitment made it possible for us to be here now. Let us call one another to the table of abundance, that we may feed on those fruits that sustain us and ever ask us to grow. Let us open to this moment with hearts that have no borders. Please join me in the chalice lighting, which you'll see on your screen. May this flame stir our hearts and remind us of our mission, to be truly welcoming, to grow in mind and spirit, and to widen the circle of peace, justice, and love. And let's join in singing our opening hymn, For the Beauty of the Earth. Rise as you're willing or able. We'll sing all the verses. Opening hymn reminds us we have much to be grateful for, much to be thankful for in this world. And yet on this Thanksgiving Sunday, I don't know about you, but I find myself a little conflicted in terms of our history. We've talked about this for years now, in terms of the reality of the Thanksgiving myth and how it is both woven into the fabric of our nation's history, but also how it's being questioned now, just like many other things. This morning, if you lived near Plymouth in Massachusetts, just north of Cape Cod, you would have an opportunity to either attend the annual celebration, the Pilgrims in Plymouth, or the Day of Mourning offered by the United Native American Indians of New England on a hill right there in Plymouth. Or, of course, you had the opportunity to stay at home and not participate for one reason or another. We think of these things sometimes as a dichotomy. It's either this or that or that. And yet it all flows together. The history of our nation is what it is. And it calls us to look closely at both the events and the interpretations of those events. For example, we don't know exactly the date of that first celebration. It wasn't called Thanksgiving by the Pilgrims. They reserved that name for something else, a more religious celebration. This Thanksgiving that we remember, that we think we know about, that maybe we see in Victorian illustrations of that Thanksgiving with pilgrims and linen tablecloths and things like that, that didn't happen. They didn't even have forks until later in the century. And it certainly was not really an English affair. Yes, the Pilgrims were grateful that they had been able to harvest their first year of crops, only because they had been given the knowledge by the Native American Wampanoag tribe and others in the Narragansett Confederacy. And so they decided to celebrate, and they sent some of their individuals out to hunt, maybe some fowl. It was a time where there was a lot of birds passing through the area, and they were very fortunate enough to feed the gathering of 53 pilgrims remaining from the 102 that sailed on the Mayflower, and have a celebration. And in firing off their weapons, either in hunting or maybe just in celebration in the compound, they attracted the attention of the Native Americans, natives, the indigenous people, who came to find out what was going on, understood there was a celebration afoot, and then went out and managed to hunt and kill 5 deer to bring to the celebration. There were twice as many, basically, Wampanoag tribes people there in that celebration as there were pilgrims. It was a feast that the pilgrims couldn't have hosted themselves. They didn't have enough furniture to put out on the lawn, and welcome people that way. And so it was a 3-day event of cooking and gathering together. It was a collaborative event of gratitude, both for the pilgrims who had survived, those who had, but also for the Massasoit, the native chief who was responsible for offering help to the pilgrims. They had also survived. They had mutually found a way to live and survive in that area in that time. History is really interesting when you dive down deep and understand the mutual need that existed in that point, and then what happened afterwards. We're all aware of the incessant need for land that was a result of continued migration of Europeans to this continent, the desecration of that land, the genocide of our Native American people who were so rich in their culture. When we think back to that original question, would you be at the ceremony of National Day of Mourning or would you be at the celebration? We want to celebrate where we are, our ancestors, those who have brought us to this moment, both nationally and locally and within this congregation. And yet we know that history is deeper than a celebration or a mourning, and the reality that it is, and we have to contend with the both and. I grew up in New England, and I've shared so many times my love of the holiday. And what I remember most is really what we need to remember is the joy of family, of relation, of connection, of celebration, of remembering. This Thanksgiving, I will enjoy the day with family and friends and connecting across distances. And that, my friend, is the most important piece. We will talk about history a little bit later, but I just wanted to center down into the moment of gratitude, the moment of understanding that it is us together that celebrates in gratitude for our connections with one another. And while we all love the food, or maybe we don't, I know that Stephanie St. John's cooking a turkey, but she's vegetarian, so you never know. But let us be grateful and let us sing together our centering hymn this morning as you remain seated. A traditional song with Unitarian Universalist words written by Dorothy and Bob Senghas. We gather together. Words will be on your screen.
We gather together in joyful thanksgiving, acclaiming creation whose bounty we share. Both sorrow and gladness we find now in our living. We sing a hymn of praise to the life that we bear. We gather together to join in the journey, confirming, committing our passage to be a true affirmation in joy and tribulation, when bound to human care and hope, then we are free.
On this Thanksgiving weekend, we have so much to remember. All that we've gone through since we were together in March of 2020. All the loss, the love, all the incredible sacrifice, all the exposure of many things in our society that were difficult to watch and look at. All of which we must be grateful for. It is a time of remembrance, a time of thoughtfulness, and deep, deep down, a time of gratitude. Grateful to take this time every Sunday to honor your individual ups and downs, your joys and sorrows, the thoughts that you're carrying of family and friends in this time. I'm still not quite ready to join you out in the sanctuary with the microphone, so once again, if you will, I will indicate a time for you to speak a name, realizing that not every joy or sorrow will be spoken in this time, but know that you are held by this community in love. So joys and sorrows, if you have a name to speak, then I'll move from my left to right. Thank you so much. Again, my heart is with you all. We will let you know that Flo Beckler is feeling okay, but she's in rehab in Lely Palms. And if you want to visit, then I suggest you get in touch with the caring committee for some details and maybe some coordination. That would be Joan Leary, Rose Lemery, Adrian Cady as well. If you want to raise your hands, if you're here, there's Rose, and there's Adrian. We miss Flo. She occupies this seat up front, and when she's not here, it feels a little bit lonely. So we honor that. And again, thinking about all those people who have been on the front lines of the pandemic that we are hopefully slowly coming out of, we just are grateful for their efforts, their extreme sacrifice, and also for the loss of so many people and the families who have been affected by that. Our meditation this morning is by the Reverend Alicia Ford, When We Pause to Remember. Spirit of life and love, when we pause to remember who we are, companions on this grand experiment called life, when we take a moment to shed the ways we have been carefully taught to lead from fear, to punish the poor, to persecute those who do not look like we do, to deny rights to those who love, to believe that we are separate, that some people are superior to others. When we take a moment to shed all that and hear our stories, hear and see each other into existence, into community, when we take a moment to embrace, to practice a different way of being, when we answer the call of love, then we are living into the promise of building the world we dream about. It is beautiful to dream, to cast a vision, to stretch our minds into the future and imagine what may be if we were what may be if we were to work to make it so. Not someday, but beginning again today. Beginning again every day that we have breath. Taking courage with these hands and hearts to make real the dream of a more equitable world. To journey together in gratitude, seeking to be transformed even as we transform. Becoming explorers and learners in this world around us, humbled by what we do not yet know, fulfilling the promise of healing a fragmented world, laboring not just in hope but also in love. In this spirit, may we commit. In this spirit, we gather. In this spirit, we pray in whatever way we know. This morning's reading is from Richard Freelander, a writer, blogger, and mediator in the San Francisco Bay Area. Freelander writes, "History is written by the victors," so Winston Churchill said. Napoleon called it a fable agreed upon. So what happens when in the course of time the losers turn the table and become the victors? Do we get another fable agreed upon? I'm told we are now in the post-truth era where feelings and ideology have superseded facts. And yet I don't think any era has been able to claim truth as a fact, their truth as a fact. Even the veracity of a date sometimes depends on your chosen calendar. That might have been what inspired the British authors of 1066 and all that, whose conclusion was that the Norman invasion of England was the only date worth remembering because that was when their country came into being. And it's significant that the book ends with the close of World War I, with America having replaced England as the top nation. All history ended for Britain. Depending on what one's trying to prove, Freelander writes, any event can be seen as the one from which the future sprang. But it's not like establishing a family tree. It's a natural quest, one through which individuals try to explain their own lives. We can say that the United States began with the importation of slaves in 1619 and attributed to this all our subsequent economic gains and social woes. If politics is your focus, 1619 also marks the creation of the Virginia House of Burgesses, our first democratically elected legislature, an idea that quickly spread to other colonies. The year 1620 could mark the birth of religious freedom, no matter the unwillingness of the Pilgrims or Puritans to grant it to others. Or 1776, 1787, or perhaps 1865, when our Constitution, Declaration of Independence, Constitution, the end of the Civil War, the Emancipation Proclamation. Or we could look much further back and look to the first people who immigrated across the Bering Strait 12,000 years ago, or to the creation myths of the many tribes across this land whose truths haven't yet been lost. Like beauty, an event's significance is often in the eyes of the beholder. As long as we realize that we are interpreting events according to our beliefs and feelings, and not claiming our viewpoint as absolute truth, we continue in the long, healthy line of interpreters of events. Once we claim that what we have discovered is the pure truth, however, we are in trouble. Democracies are living bodies that allow for disagreement, even as to our lineage. Democracies are living bodies that allow for disagreement. Autocracies and theocracies do not.
We are not our own, earth names us. Human leaves on nature's growing vine, fruit of many generations, seeds of life divine. We are not alone, earth names us, past and present peoples near and far, family and friends and strangers, show us who we are. Therefore let us make thanksgiving, and with justice willing and aware, give to earth all things living, liturgies of care.
In the book, We Were 8 Years in Power, American journalist and author Ta-Nehisi Coates wrote, America begins in black plunder and white democracy, two features that are not contradictory, but complementary. Democracy in our nation has always been compromised. I remember reading about the conversations behind the scenes at the Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia and how much the men there struggled and had to compromise on the idea of slavery, leaving it for another generation to solve or not. So at the very founding, participation in government was limited to white male landowners. Wealth was created from those who were excluded, land seized from indigenous people who were forced to assimilate, removed or exterminated, and labor exploited from enslaved Africans, indentured servants, immigrants, prisoners, the working poor, women, children. The nation's founding documents express incredible ideals of democratic equality. But unequal valuation has undermined the prospects for living the promise of this democracy, where white people are valued more than people of color, men more than women, rich more than poor, cisgender and heterosexuals over LGBTQ plus people. And these valuations enshrined in law and custom amplify the power of the advantaged and the advantages of the powerful, and continue to undercut our expressed ideals. There are many things to look positively upon the steps that we made. The 13th Amendment abolishing slavery, the 14th and 15th Amendments granting citizenship and voting rights to naturally born citizens, including African American men. The 19th Amendment giving women the right to vote in 1920. And civil rights legislation in the 1960s, expanding those rights of participation in our democracy. And yet our laws and our systems continue to protect privilege and maintain value gaps. The dominant culture that has held sway throughout the United States' 400-year history continues today through policies that disproportionately lower voter participation and reduce representation among peoples of color, people with low income, young adults, people with disabilities, and other disadvantaged people. Such policies that deny voting rights for people convicted of felonies, that deny voting rights to people convicted of felonies, require voting ID requirements, restrictions on early voting opportunities, the gerrymandering that's going on, is problematic. So you ask, well, why are you bringing this up when it's Thanksgiving and we want to be grateful about things? And the answer is that we are here. That we are here together. We are here together with possibilities in front of us. Still grateful for those who have come before, because that we are here together with opportunities before us. The 400-year experiment that is the United States of America currently is not over. It's not a done deal. It's not an either or. We can throw up our hands and say, well, we're on the brink. Or we can roll up our sleeves. In whatever way we possibly can, if it's to pick up a pen or to hold a placard or to walk across some aisle and shake someone's hand. We need to be grateful for the powers that we have, that we are given to make change, not only for ourselves, but for those who have struggled, who have been oppressed, who are still being oppressed in this land, who are still finding themselves on the wrong side of things. Our pandemic exposed so many of those things. Martin Luther King, echoing Unitarian minister Theodore Parker. We love to use this line. The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. And we can no longer really wait for that to happen. We have to act now or face the unthinkable consequences of a destroyed environment, an unlivable planet, a democracy that's struggling to find itself. We have to embrace the struggle in gratitude for all that we have, all that we've been given, all that people down through the ages, good and bad, have brought to us in this moment, in this time, in this space. Unitarian Universalist minister Reverend Barbara Pescan expressed both our debt and our ongoing responsibility to those who came before us. She wrote, "Because of those who came before, we are. In spite of their failings, we believe. Because of and in spite of the horizons of their vision, we too dream. The nation's founders pointed in the direction of a horizon they themselves could not see. And as it has ever been, it falls now to us to make the dream of democracy uncorrupted, a government truly of the people, by the people, and for the people." One of my favorite meditation manuals is called Voices from the Margin. And in that, there's this wonderful meditation by Clyde Grubbs and Marjorie Bowens Wheatley. Clyde Grubbs is a Texas Cherokee UU minister, been active for so long in our tradition. And Marjorie Bowens Wheatley, Unitarian Universalist minister, leader, writer. History's Road by Clyde Grubbs and Marjorie Bowens Wheatley. The road of history is long, full of both hope and disappointment. In times past, there have been wars and rumors of wars, violence and exploitation, hunger and homelessness and destruction of this earth. We have become a global village with a growing realization how fragile this earth is and how interconnected we are to each other and to all creation. We cannot continue to live in the old way. We must make a change, see a new way, a way towards peace with justice and a healthy planet. O great creative Spirit, you have given a vision of the good, and we yearn for a new way. But where are we to find the courage to begin this work? We know that a different tomorrow is possible, but how can we build it? We think of the prophets, women and men who voiced unpopular opinions, who made personal sacrifices and sometimes lost their lives for the sake of justice. We think of the prophet Isaiah, who called out to let those who are held in captivity go free, to give solace to the poor and the homeless. Let us be inspired by all who work to overcome misery, poverty, and exploitation. We think of Harriet Tubman, who called out to the people of goodwill to join her on an underground railroad, to lift a dehumanized people from the bondage of slavery to the promise of freedom, even when it meant challenging unjust laws. Let us be inspired by those who are outlaws for freedom. We think of Gandhi, whose belief in soul force, the witness to love's truth, helped overthrow the oppression of an empire and gave witness to the way of nonviolent action. Let us be inspired to become witnesses for peace. We think of Chief Seattle, who reminded us that we belong to the earth, not the earth to us. Let us be inspired by all those who work for the healing of creation, of Mother Earth and all her creatures. Who are the prophets who inspire you? They may well be known or known only to you, offering personal inspiration, courage, and hope. May they join the great cloud of witnesses to a new way of life, the way of peace and justice, the way of justice lived according to the way of peace, the beloved community. And may we be grateful for the opportunities that we still have to make those ideas so. Allowing you to sit quietly, absorbing today's message and those wonderful words from Clyde Grubbs and Marjorie Bowens-Wheatley. Let's also take the time to show our gratitude for this community and the blessings that it brings to all of us. The morning's offering will be gratefully received.
I don't know why love is a feeling that leaves no doubt its power is true. And I don't know why everyone feels it. It's like sunshine through the clouds of blue. I don't know why the skies above are endless. The colors of a sunset change the way they do. And I don't know why we take it for granted when every day is a gift of something new. One thing I know, when I'm feeling so blue, Lord, this world seems better to me when I think about you. I don't know why there's some are born lucky, while others are in sickness, hunger, and pain. And I don't know why Mother Nature is angry and lashes out with fire, wind, and rain. I don't know why we lose innocent people to random violence of the truly insane. I don't know why they'd ever hurt children. Just what they're thinking or hoping to gain. But one thing I know, when I'm feeling so blue, Lord, this world seems better to me when I think about you. I don't know why time goes so quickly. Seems we come into this world, go out like the breeze. And I don't know why I love to remember our loved ones past, fading memories. And I don't know why we've got a world of trouble. The day by day seems to worsen by degree. And I don't know why I'm searching for answers. Just try to understand, to put my mind at ease. But one thing I know, when I'm feeling so blue, Lord, this world seems better to me when I think about you. Oh, this world seems better to me when I think about you.
Frank, thank you so much for being here. It's been fabulous. Happy to have you stay and play some more after the service if you'd like. If you've been around campus lately, you know that things are bubbling here at UUCGN, and I hope that you'll look into the weekly blasts and the Sunday news to see what's coming up and take the opportunity to join others in fellowship, growing in mind and spirit. Two quick things. The Mindful Monday Forum that was scheduled from before last week, I think, John Pesaris, is now rescheduled for a week from tomorrow, the 29th of November. So put that on your calendars. You didn't miss it if you weren't able to see that. And we've scheduled two newcomer orientations for Thursday night, December 9th, and Sunday after the service on December 12th. So if you've been here, as many of you have, for some time and not been able to join us in one of those orientations, I hope you will pick one of those days and find out a little bit more about Unitarian Universalism and this congregation specifically. If you're interested in membership, that's sort of the path, attending one of those sessions. So we hope that you'll join me and the membership committee on that. And please rise as you're willing or able to sing our closing hymn with us. It's number 128, For All That Is Our Life. For all that is
our life, we sing our thanks and praise. For all life is a gift which we are called to use to build the common good and make our own days glad. for needs which others serve, for services we give, for work and its rewards, for hours of rest and love, we come with praise and thanks for all that is our life. For sorrow we must bear, for failures, pain, and loss, for each new thing we learn, for fearful hours that pass, we come with praise and thanks for all that is our life. For all that is our life, we sing our thanks and praise. For all life is a gift which we are called to use to build the common good and make our own days glad.
We have tomorrow. Hold on to what is good, bright before us like a flame. Yesterday, a night gone thing, a sundown name, and on today, broad arch above the road we came. We march. Go in peace, go in love, go in gratitude for all that is our life. And Frank, what's the closing line of your song? Yeah, you sing it so many times, right? This world seems better to me when I think about you. Have a great day.